Welcome everyone to episode 15 of the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor. As I promised you guys, you Vertebreaker fans, I should say, I would not forget about you. Now, I did an interview with Ryan. Go listen to that. Ryan, I started the band with, but really this, my guest today is the guy who really helps me keep this band running more than anything else. He, as a songwriter, as as a guy who has a great mind for the business, who is just a marketing machine. I mean, this guy's on social media all the time. Merchandise, artwork. I mean, I can tell you for sure that, if it wasn't for Rod Bobo, Vertebreaker would not be nearly what it is today. He's one of those guys where, I guess technically he wasn't the first bass player of this band, but he's been around practically from the beginning. So as far as I'm concerned, he's pretty much an original member. He definitely helps me keep this whole show running, and so important to the band, and he's a great guy to work with, and in addition to being a phenomenal bass player and a singer and a songwriter, he's just, you talk about bands having the right chemistry, and there's not much more I can say to that. I tried to have something all written out and tried to be all epic with the introduction, but I'm just going to go ahead and bring him in because I know he's been waiting long enough. I know we've been running into a few technical problems trying to get this thing started, but I'm just going to introduce him. He's one of the two bald guys that you see on stage with me every time you go see Vertebreaker. He's an incredible bass player, songwriter, and let's be honest, one of the sexiest men in rock and roll, Roderick J. Bobo. What's up, man?
This guy sounds incredible.
Yeah, well, you should meet him. I mean, he's
I would
something
love
else.
to. I would love to meet him.
First of all, before we get started, let's just get this out in the open. Bobo is your real last name, is it not?
I swear it.
Yes. That was like one of the first things I asked you when we met. I'm like, is that your last name? Really?
That's right, you did.
I was like, that's not real.
I know. I get that.
But it is. I believe is it Italian? Is that the derivation of it, or?
It is actually French.
Ah.
I believe in times long ago it was Beau, which of course is a lot to write. So somehow,
Bobo.
I guess when it came to Staten Island, it got reduced to Bo.
It sounds like there might be like a few silent X's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably a few
that.
like other consonants that like don't, that haven't made it, that don't even make sense, but they're in there somehow because that's French.
Why am I picturing like a wrestling name right now?
I don't know, but like I'm telling you, we should call Vince and like have that move that forward because that would be incredible. But the funny thing is, man, it's like you and I, like, we get together at least once a week. We're in the band. We've been in this band for 2 years. We've kind of seen it through, but it's the funny thing about this podcast is that like it allows me to talk to you about stuff that like you and I normally never talk about.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And like you had heard me and Ryan kind of touch on that in our last, in the thing I did with him. And so I'm just gonna go through sort of the generic stuff, I guess. I mean, because I don't really know like how you got started or your early life. I know you're from Michigan originally.
No, I'm not.
No, you're not. Because I thought you said you lived there before.
You think you know somebody, Jack, and then
I guess so, man. I like, who are you? That's basically
who
what
am
I'm
I?
saying. I've only been jamming with you two and a half years. Like, what the?
Right. I mean, like, you need to know critical things like that about me. I mean,
well,
no.
You're so quiet. I mean, we never get to talk.
I am a Florida native, sir.
Ah, now, were you born in the Melbourne area?
I was born in Orlando.
So where did I get Michigan from? Because didn't you live up there for a bit?
No. That's because my parents actually moved up there more recently.
Oh, okay. That's
So,
right, because your mom, I know your dad at least lives up there. I guess your mom's up there
right.
with him.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's where that all came from.
Gotcha. See, that's the thing, man. Like, you and I hang out so much, but like, we don't really talk about this stuff because we're so focused on the band. We're kind of focused on what we're doing. It's nice to kind of like sit back and be like, dude, where are you from?
I know. Jack, what have you been up to the last 2 years?
I know, right? Which is like one of those things. It's like, because you would think, I mean, as close as we are, as great as we get along, like we just, I guess we're kind of focused on what we're doing. We never go, we never just sit back and be like, yeah, Rod, tell me your life story, please.
I know. Yeah, no, we stay so busy.
Gotcha. Now, I know, I'm now, I was always curious, like, when you started like playing music. Really, was bass even your first instrument?
It was actually, yeah. Um, I I still remember it. I was in seventh grade when I got my first bass guitar, and the reason why I wanted to play bass was my older brother Wes played bass guitar. So yeah, he's like 10 years older than me. So at the time that he was in rock bands, at the time I was
Mm-hmm.
like 6 years old. So I didn't really know much about music. Obviously, I don't think at 6 years old, but I was already kind of exposed to that
Yeah.
environment of
Yeah.
him and his band, like jamming out in my dad's workshop. I was like just a little kid checking it out, and 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 me and him shared a room. So basically, when he was playing bass or playing piano, and like he was a songwriter, he was a phenomenal bass player, and I guess that's probably what inspired me to want to play bass.
Right on.
So I guess like when it came time to pick my first instrument. And this is funny because I took band in middle school, but like, I didn't start off on anything cool. I played like saxophone, and it was like, but you didn't care because it was like your first musical instrument and you were just so stoked to be playing any instrument.
Right.
And then I think like maybe like in seventh grade, maybe the second year into band, I got the opportunity to play like a cool instrument on the side, like at home, like I got, started getting into music, and so my parents were like, is there any other instrument you want to play? And I wanted to play bass. So
Nice.
my dad drove me over to Tampa, where my brother lived,
Mm-hmm.
and he worked at Thoroughbred Music Center, which was like pre Guitar Center, pre Sam Ash. I mean, this place was like a mega music store, just huge, like the size of a Best Buy or bigger, just all.
Nice.
And at the time, I mean, they didn't have those kind of things. Like now, it's everywhere. It's no big deal. But he took me there. My brother was working there, and he took me there to pick out a bass guitar.
Oh man, that must have been like Candyland.
Oh my God, it was insane. I mean, you know, surrounded by all that crazy stuff, and I actually ended up getting a Fender Music Master 4-string bass. Took it home immediately. Like I tried doing the music instruction books at first because that's basically what I was used to from taking band classes.
Right.
So, started off with like the beginner books, learning how to the basics of the bass guitar, and then immediately got bored with that and tried to jump ahead too soon, and like immediately start playing records and like listening to the bass and trying to figure out what they're playing and then basically learning how to play it by ear. So I really did both. At home, when I was just learning rock music, I learned it by ear, and then when I was at school doing music, we read off of sheet music, so both.
That's wild, man. Like, you and I like almost have like an identical story about how we came across. Because I mean, you know that I started out playing bass, and I was in seventh grade or around the same time as well. And it's like because it's like I don't have any brothers, but I had like a bunch of older cousins, and like my one cousin Jay played guitar in bands and stuff, and then my other cousin Ricky, he wasn't a musician, but like when I was a little kid, I used to like sneak into his bedroom, and there would be like posters of like Poison and Cinderella on the wall,
Right.
and I'd be a little kid, and I'd be like, ooh, hey, what's that? Are those dudes? I can't even tell. Like,
Right.
But like I was just fascinated by it, and like and so it's like it's funny how a lot of that stuff like rubs off on you, especially if you're the youngest in the family. Like you want to emulate what they're doing.
Yeah. It's funny too, because at that same time, is when I really started developing just a love of music. But I was so young, I didn't really. When you first get into music, think about it. When you're that age, that young, and but you love music, so, but you don't belong to any particular genre of music.
Yeah.
You have no concept of what's cool and not cool or whatever.
Right.
You just love music. So I had some of the most, to this day, to say them out loud to other human beings is so embarrassing because of like how like just some of these songs, but
well, that's why I decided to record it and like broadcast it to all of our friends.
Right, and see,
Isn't that convenient?
And here's why I don't care though, because I don't care who you are, everybody has something you listened to when you were young that now when you look back on it, you're like, oh
yeah, no, we all do. That's part of figuring it out, man.
So listen to this. This is hilarious.
All right, lay it on me.
I had a flashback. Like I said, my brother was older than me. My sister was older than me. So they graduated high school, got married, moved off. So I was basically not an only child, but by myself all the time because,
right.
Basically I was really young when they were around. So
yeah.
During those years where I was by myself, and as old as I am, this is like pre-internet, like there just was, you had to entertain yourself.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting at. And so I would put on these records, and I kid you not, I would like air guitar, with brooms and tennis rackets and anything I could muster. And just jumping around, putting on just like performing to an invisible audience.
Oh yeah.
To these records, just getting into the music.
Rocking out. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's hilarious because I was probably like, jumping around playing air guitar to like, Charlie Daniels band or something.
Hey man, dude, Devil Went Down to Georgia, man. I'm telling you.
That was the jam right there.
I mean, could you imagine if we made like a cover of that song and like had just like Greg or someone just playing that on guitar? I'm telling you, man.
Listen, that was my favorite part when I was air fiddling.
Dude, when he started rocking on the fiddle, come on.
Oh
now.
God, the fiddle solo.
I'm not even from the South, and I can appreciate that. Come on. Like dude, that's nothing to be embarrassed about.
No, listen, you'll like this one because I know you're a big Queen fan.
Yes, I am.
One of the first songs that I can even recollect learning on the bass, like a lot of people say "Smoke on the Water."
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was Another One Bites the Dust because I had the album "The Game" by Queen at the time, and eventually learned how to play all the bass parts to all the songs on there. But at first, being a beginner, I was awesome. Like so excited that I could play bum 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 bum.
Dude, I mean, that's an iconic bass line, man.
Right. You look back on it now and you're like, okay, yeah.
Dude, here's a deep cut from the Game album. Don't Try Suicide.
Yes.
Don't do that.
Another favorite to play bass too, Dragon Attack.
Oh my God, yes. Dude, that bass line is killer. John Deacon, man, I'm telling you, he was a freak.
Yeah.
Take me to the real and the white's on black. Take me back to the shack. Yeah. This could be the entire podcast, by the way. You and me just like singing songs back and forth to each other. People will be like, why am I listening to these guys? Like, what is happening? These are the dudes from Vertebreaker? Like, what?
I know. It's
This is a, I mean, this is a typical conversation you and I have, just breaking out into song randomly.
all the time.
Pretty much. But yeah, I mean, like, it's funny how you talk about like learning how to play bass by ear as well as like, you know, sheet music, and because it's like I took lessons and everything growing up, but it's like I would put on a CD or something at home and play like For Whom the Bell Tolls or something like that, and just like practice along to something like that.
Yeah. It almost seemed like it was criminal to try to learn rock music off of sheet music.
Right. Well, I mean,
You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't being rebellious. I mean, come on. When I'm at school, that's where we do it proper off sheet music. But when I'm at home jamming some rock, trying to learn it, you can't read sheet music.
well, I mean, that's one of those things, man. And like, there's nothing wrong with learning theory and learning all the technical stuff, but it's like, especially when you're starting out, it's like, man, you got to be able to listen to it and you got to
Right.
feel it.
You were being an outlaw.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's so many guys like I run into who like, you know, they learn through tabs and stuff. Whether it's, I guess maybe it's harder to do that on guitar than it is on bass, but still, it's like I'll run into guys who don't like who can't play by ear, and I'm like, dude, you gotta try. You gotta feel it. You know, you gotta just develop your chops that way. You know how to jam and you're able to improvise if you need to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I mean, at the same time, like jamming on like rock and metal tunes, like you need to know the songs. It's not like you can go to, it's not like, you know, like a blues jam where you can go and just learn the same progression and be able to like kind of jam over top that. Like that's why you don't have a lot of like open rock jams out there,
Right.
because it's like you need to know the song. You can't just
Right.
like. So, but I mean, 12-bar blues, you can do that no problem. Have the guitar solo over top of that, all that stuff.
Right.
But so yeah, and it's funny, you know, going back to what we were saying earlier. It's like I was around 13, around 7th grade when I started playing bass. That seemed to kind of be the same time frame that you did.
Now, it was probably not even, I'll bet you within the first year from when I got that bass guitar, I already was trying to put a rock band together. And one of my best friends to this day lived across the street from me. He was 1 year younger than me, so we were essentially around the same age, and he was into rock, and he actually turned me on to like all kinds of awesome rock and metal that I probably would have never discovered were it not for him. And the person I'm talking about is Mr. Mike Coe, who some might know him as the drummer for Fun Pipe.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I've heard you and Greg talk about those guys for a long
Yeah.
time. You guys go back years and
Yeah,
years.
he's no longer in Fun Pipe, but I'm pretty sure he's one of the founding members, and he was in it for several years. But yeah, anyway, he's a drummer, so he picked up drums, and I'm
Yeah.
playing bass. So obviously, you know, we're immediately searching who at our school plays guitar. So thanks to him, I started listening to like all kinds of like, you know, Kiss, Maiden, Judas Priest,
Yes.
Def Leppard,
Mm-hmm.
Rush.
The greats. Yeah.
I mean, and bear in mind, again, like I said, I'm old as hell. So when I say I was getting into these bands, I mean, like, a lot of them were like new. Like,
Yeah.
I will never to this day forget the day that he came over to my house all the way from across the street, traveled a long journey. And he had the new Guns N' Roses album, and this was Appetite for Destruction. And
Nice.
mind
oh my
you,
God.
this is literally right when GNR hit it. And
I mean,
I
what
don't-
what was that even like? Like, I mean, because they just shook up everything at the time.
we sat on either side of this record player, and he put the needle on the record, man, and we turned it up, and I think we just sat there with our jaws like agape, you know,
Yeah.
like what is this? Because I mean, we're coming out of like hair metal days,
Right, yeah, that was the time, man,
and
right?
these guys were so raunchy and just rock and roll, man.
But you know what? I mean, they still like complemented the glam stuff like well
Right.
enough. Like they like it all kind of fit together. They weren't trying to like destroy all these other bands. They were just like, okay, here's something else, kind of in the same vein, but just a bit of a more raw approach to it. But it's all part of the rock scene. You know what I mean?
They were a hybrid, but they were a very appealing hybrid, like just God, they sounded so incredible, and nobody else was really sounding like that at the time.
It was, I mean, it was almost like a cross between like AC/DC and the Stones, you know?
Yeah, they were a mixture of a lot of very cool influences, obviously.
And maybe a little bit of like Slade in there for good measure.
Right.
Like 70s era glam, like T-Rex, but not like in the look, just in terms of like, because Axl has such a unique voice, like, and a lot of rock singers can be like this, where it's like they have voices where they're not in the classical sense the greatest voices, but they can sing really well, if that makes any sense. Like, you look at Bon and like Brian Johnson from AC/DC.
Right.
In the traditional sense, they don't have like the cleanest sounding voices, but they sing their asses off.
Yeah, terrible traditional style singers, but incredible rock and roll singers.
or even on the other end of the spectrum, like later on, like in the 90s, you'd have like Eddie Vedder and like Scott Stapp, for example. Like, not and people roll their eyes at this one because not everyone likes his voice, but it's unconventional, but it works for the style. Like, or even Dave Matthews, like guys like that, where it's just like they kind of have this little quirk about them, but it works. I mean, you even take it back to like Elvis Costello and all that sort of thing.
Or even farther back, Neil Young and Bob Dylan.
Oh yeah. I mean, those guys, they're
pretty terrible singers, really, but like amazing songwriters.
Look at my life, I'm a lot like you are. That was.
And then you got Bob Dylan.
How does it feel?
We're, like I said, man, we're just going to be doing voices for the next hour on this thing.
It's like Step Brothers right now. I'll just like name a singer.
Brian Johnson. Axl.
And you will like immediately belt out a snippet from one of their songs.
Pretty much, yeah. That's like what's happening right now.
Oh, listen, so seriously, like between me and him hanging out as little kids, listening to these metal records,
and by the way, I wanted to clarify for the listeners, Fun Pipe currently is like one of like Brevard's like best like rock metal cover bands. Those guys have been out there doing their thing for a while, so that's who Fun Pipe is, in case you're asking.
Right. So Mike, who was the drummer for Fun Pipe, he isn't currently, but was for many years. He lived right across the street from me growing up, and we're little kids, and I'm coming out of my era of listening to like just random records that make no sense because I guess I didn't belong to a genre yet. So he moves in across the street, we start hanging out, he's got all these cool like rock and metal albums, I start listening to that. So it wasn't even a year that we were already trying to put a rock band together, and this is another one. This is hilarious. Every musician is going to relate to this, and I swear will also have a similar band name that is so like stupid and embarrassing now, but was so cool to you when you were a little kid.
Oh, of course.
I believe he and I put our first metal band together, and we called it Armageddon.
Nice.
and I mean, and it's hilarious. I remember like playing, technically they were gigs. We would play like birthday parties and stuff, and we're up here playing like Iron Maiden, like Wrathchild and Judas Priest. You got Another Thing Coming, and I'm thinking, how terrible must we have sounded? But yet,
dude, in your mind, you were epic, crushing it.
we were those bands at the
course.
time, so we thought, but it must have been so horrible.
I mean, the fact that you're playing like those songs and you're like going right out of the gate, like you're 13, you and Mike just start jamming immediately.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even gotten into high school yet, and we're already just like
I mean, that's farther than I got at that age. Shit.
going nuts, trying to just go nuts with it. And we would jam over at my house, out in my dad's workshop, the same workshop my brother's band jammed in 10 years before that.
Oh yeah.
And and we just I think this is funny, like I went from metal and then I got into high school, and this is hilarious. When you get into high school, you kind of either intentionally or unintentionally end up landing in some type of a clique, I guess.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that's just life, man.
I mean, that's definitely high school.
Absolutely.
And I think at the time I was really starting to get into alternative,
Mm-hmm.
which, was kind of like when disco was big and suddenly people wanted metal, and it was like, what? And here I was, going to alternative, which was to metal, it was like the total opposite.
Right, but I mean, and that's the thing. It really, I mean, when you think about it, it really isn't though.
Well, now, when I say alternative, I mean like The Cure and, stuff like that. Like,
right. But I mean, it's still rock music. You know what I mean?
Right. But one band that I was very influenced by around that time when I was into alternative was The Cult.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
They were pretty hard rocking back in the day. She Sells Sanctuary, all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. They didn't start off as heavy rock as they ended up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of was like a big fan of them through that whole evolution.
Yeah, man. Firewoman, all that stuff.
Oh, I love Removal Machine. That's So, and I loved Ian Astbury. He was just
another guy who has a weird voice, but he makes it work.
Right.
Fire.
I know, he definitely has a distinct sound.
Right.
And then I think probably from like the next big band to influence me was the Deftones.
Yeah. Okay, moving into the 90s a little bit, and
yeah. And and that's another thing. Like, now that I think about it, when you first start playing, at least for me, I really didn't try to write my own songs. I was just caught up in learning all these metal songs. And so probably in the 90s when I started getting an interest in writing my own stuff is when I was really getting influenced by the Deftones, which is ironic. Well, it's funny I say that because, I listen to some of my old recordings and I'm like, I don't hear any Deftones in that, but...
But they were still an influence, though.
Definitely an influence, though, yeah.
Even though it didn't show that. Yeah, I mean, Deftones is definitely a unique band. They kind of had the alternative vibe. They had like the new metal thing happening. I think they threw some rap rock in there because they had the turntable guy, but they also just, I guess alternative metal is a good way to describe them, because like they could get heavy, but they could also get like weird and experimental, but they make it work.
Yeah, we actually just went and saw them in West Palm.
That's right.
And I've seen the Deftones so many times, and every time they're phenomenal.
Yeah, man, I saw them a couple years ago when they opened for Avenged Sevenfold in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
Which Ryan was there, by the way. He was in like right in front of the stage. He was like got there hours before and was just like he was practically crushed against the stage. But I think he and Karen and like maybe Matt Gibbs or I don't know who else was with him, but like they had a whole crew there. They were just like right up against the front. It was pretty incredible.
He's a huge A7X fan.
Yeah, well, I mean, Deftones were there and Ghost was there as well. Ghost, BC, whatever. And Deftones did good, but I mean, obviously they're a completely different kind of band from Avenged Sevenfold. But
yeah,
they sounded pretty good. My only thing with the Deftones is that like Chino looks like he's like falling asleep sometimes when he's on stage.
Right.
I think that's probably just because of the amount that he smokes before going on stage. I don't know. I don't know.
I was just
going
to say, I'm pretty positive he's not going to fall asleep. He's probably just incredibly high.
Yeah, he's herbally medicated, I guess. That's one way to put it. But yeah, that's
Listen, he has glaucoma. Okay.
It's pretty serious.
Right.
It's legal in California. But anyway, yeah, no, I mean that's pretty awesome. I mean, you've had influences across the board, which is I think why you and I click so well, because like I mean, when you look at our band, really, you know, we don't try to say that we're an alternative band, we don't try to say that we're a metal band, or I mean, we're just a rock and roll band.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and that encompasses quite a bit, I think. And that encompasses bluesy stuff. That encompasses, you know, just so many different types of music, you know, rock and roll has borrowed from over the years, that I think that allows us a lot of freedom. I mean, I've always felt like, I mean, yeah, we kind of stick to the heavier stuff right now, but I'm sure as time goes on, you know, we're going to be writing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I think rather than be stuck in one of the genre niches, you know, in the giant tree of genres that have blossomed over the decades, you know, I mean, it's incredible now. I do prefer to stay in the rock realm because like you said, because it's so all encompassing.
It really is.
It's the core, you know, like we've talked about this actually in other interviews that we've done with Vertebreaker, that you know, just coming from that era, you know, with the metal.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like Queen, for example. Those guys just did whatever they wanted.
Right.
I mean, like, you know, like they would do like little like, I mean, listen to a song like Seaside Rendezvous. You know.
I know.
It'd be like little like 1920s jazz hall with like a shredding Brian May guitar solo over. I mean, that's what kind of kept it together, really. It was like Brian May's guitar kept him from going like too off the rails.
Right.
But yeah, but they would also, like, the next album they would do, or a couple albums in, they would do like Hot Space. It was like practically a disco record, but it was like hard rocking too. Like it was like they had no fear, that band. And like, you know, I know on any given night, like, we will be like listening to stuff from like the Deftones, and then Greg will bust out a riff from like Warrant, you know, Cherry Pie album.
Right.
You know, like, and then we'll be like, hey, let's go back and listen to some Iron Butterfly or something. Like, it's just like, there are a lot of bands who like take their style and their cue completely from like bands up to a certain era. And then like other, like, I guess, quote unquote modern rock bands that are like everything made before 1993 sucks.
Right.
You know, and I'm like telling people, I'm like, you know what, there was music made after this year and before this year. It's like so many guys, it's like one or the other. And I know I'm like speaking in like vague generalities here, but it's like, I mean, I've always prided myself, and I guess, and I know the rest of the guys feel this way too, and I know you do, that like we don't really look at like the generation gap of like rock music as much as other bands seem to do, I think.
Right.
Would you think that would be a fair assessment of what Vertebreaker is all about?
Yeah, and I mean, just the fact that when you look at the span of our ages, you know, over the 5 members, you know, with Greg and I being the elder members, you know, we're like, we bring those influences of rock and metal that are from, you know, when we were younger, when that era of rock and metal. And then, you know, and then everybody else, I think, brings in a lot of influences of newer rock and metal, and it's just kind of cool the way it all collides and then somehow ends up in a song that is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Jarrett and Ryan being the youngest of the 5 of us, obviously they throw in like some like cool metalcore stuff every once in a while. Even though, I mean, you know, I even though I'm not necessarily, you know, a singer of that style, and then I mean, you know, you guys say you're older. I know I'm catching up to you. Don't worry.
Shoot.
I'm like the kind of redheaded middle stepchild or something. I don't know. Literally. But
You are the nucleus.
I don't know about that, but but I mean, like you said, I mean, we go kind of all across the board as far as like hard rock and metal, and there's so much diversity within that genre. I think that not a lot of people want to acknowledge or give credit to.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess like obviously you and I met 2 years ago when the band was starting, but what were some of the other bands? I mean, I know you and Mike were jamming, since you were in your teens, but what were some of the other bands that you've been in over the years?
Well, Mike and I actually ended up putting a band together, which, like I said, it started off cover bands, but we eventually, like somewhere in the 90s, we put together a all original band, writing our own music. And that went through several transformations. We started off as a 3-piece, writing our own music, playing rock, and went down to Miami, did some recording, came back. The funny thing too, I think back to like early songwriting, and I'm like, some of the first songs, the earliest songs, were so horrible when I look at them now, but it's the whole crawl before you can walk thing.
Well, I mean, sometimes it's also one of those things, like you look back on stuff you did, and maybe it's not as bad as you think it is. Maybe
right. It's not,
because we're all our own biggest critics.
Right. It's not terrible. It's just what I guess what I really mean to say is when I listen to some of the very first songs I ever wrote and recorded compared to the stuff now, I can literally hear the songwriting getting better over the years. Like you can tell that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it takes a lot of years, really. Like I'm talking about a span of years where, like, I don't know, I guess you mature as a songwriter.
Oh, bro, I feel exactly the same way. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it's like I said, it's not like the first songs you did were absolute garbage. They're just so simple compared to how much more you've branched out now,
And you got to start somewhere.
Right. But I mean, you do. You have to start off writing those simplistic Mary Had a Little Lamb songs,
Right.
Because, what would you grow off of?
Yeah, that's got to start somewhere. I mean, hey, smoke on the water. How about that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we had a band called, ready for this one? Giant Harry Nevis.
Giant Harry Nevis.
GHN. Why would we pick such a strange, stupid name?
What exactly is a Nevis?
Well, first of all, I work in the medical field, as you know, and
I'm just going to cut you off right there.
I know, yeah, no, it's not a disgusting story.
Okay.
Just he and I both actually worked at a hospital, and we worked in the X-ray department, and we had this band, and we got offered our first gig, and we were so like stoked about it, but we didn't have a name, and we literally needed a name like within like a couple days. So I happened to be looking at a surgery schedule for the hospital for that evening, and it was like a listing of like what cases and things they were doing, and I look and I see the words Giant Harry Nevis, and I guess it just started off like, yeah, that'd be a cool name, but we actually just took it because we needed a quick name, and it stuck with us, and let's
run with this.
That right there is a firm example to all listeners who are just starting out. Think long and hard about your band name.
Right.
Because you're stuck with it, kind of. And, it wasn't real marketable, and it's not even pronounced right. I guess the correct medical pronunciation is Nevis, but too late. We already called it Giant Harry Nevis.
What exactly is a Nevis?
It is a large, hairy mole.
Kind
of like remember in the Austin Powers?
I knew you were going to go there, like mole.
Yes.
Mole,
That
mole, mole, mole. Yeah.
that was probably just a exaggerated large mole, but yeah, a giant hairy nevus, I guess, is
Yeah,
like
the one Fred Savage had on his face when he went into the...
yeah, basically, exactly.
It's amazing.
So that was our name, and then we started off as a 3-piece, and then by the time we went to do our second recording, we had expanded to a 4-piece and had 2 guitar players, and that's where I met Greg.
Ah, this would be Greg Summers.
So I met him very early on.
Aha.
And I was laughing earlier because I thought about this. I will expose his moniker. Let me tell you when I met.
Before we get into that, is it safe to say that Giant Hairy Nevis gave birth to what is now Vertebreaker?
It definitely spawned 2 dinosaurs from it.
Oh boy!
Sure.
Oh.
Listen to this. When I met Greg, you know how you've got like guitar players in the industry with like their moniker, you know, like Buckethead, John 5.
Did Greg have a stage name back then?
Greg was Guitarzan.
Yes. Oh my God, Guitarzan. That's amazing.
and you know, he told me that jokingly. He didn't really go by that, but I swear when I heard it, that was it. He should have never told me that.
He should have said that with a straight face, like, yeah, I'm Greg, but all my friends call me Guitarzan.
Oh,
like,
he was.
Just no-sold it and be like, no, that's what I want you to call me.
He was Guitarzan from that moment forward.
Dude, I mean, that's like... Oh, that's so good. That's awesome.
But that was just, you know, like that was a period of several years of writing music. Even in that band, you know, when I listened to like our first recording compared to our second recording, and then on to the third recording, I'm like, the songwriting got better and better. So you can tell that you're growing, you know, but, you know, look at how long that took over those years, you know, writing and writing and writing. And that's, you know, the stuff that you hear in the recording, as you well know, 10 times as much stuff ends up on the cutting room floor, you know, never even becomes a song.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, that's where I met Guitarzan, Greg Summers.
Dude, Guitarzan is like the best nickname ever. Like that needs to be trending worldwide by the end of this podcast. I'm telling you. Hashtag Guitarzan. Make it happen.
He's gonna love me for this.
He's gonna kill us both, I swear. But
I know.
That's so good. That's so awesome.
But you know what's funny is that,
it's almost like anytime you go to like a bar and you meet like some older dude and not that I mean guys like much older than you and Greg. I'm telling like, you know, guys who are like 60-year-old biker dudes. I'm like yeah. My name is Pete, but they call me Rock Dog. It's like really like, shut up, Pete. No, they don't.
I am not going to call you that.
Who's they? You know?
Right.
It's like you made that name up for yourself. I'm not going to call a grown man Rock Dog or whatever.
I know. But, you know, Greg and I were in a band together, yeah, for a few years. And then kind of went our separate ways and did different stuff musically. And he actually played with Fun Pipe for a while with Mike. And, but we did play together for many years. And then, you know, when we brought him into the band, it was like deja vu, you know?
I can't get this mental image out of my head. Like Greg swinging in on stage on a vine, like with a loincloth.
Oh, just ask him. I drew cartoons of that very event you're describing.
Like, looking like Ted Nugent in 1978. That
Absolutely.
Would be incredible. We need to start off a Vertebreaker gig that way, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Listen, anybody listening who is in the area and actually goes to see Vertebreaker, please start calling him Guitarzan.
Make this happen.
It's going to be a wave.
Oh my God, he's going to murder us in our sleep.
It's worth it.
I'm sorry, dude. I got you off track. What were you saying before? I don't even know what we were talking about.
I don't know either.
Guitar's hand is too
Jack,
good.
Jack, listen. Up to date, I have lived an incredible life. I just can't remember any of it,
Uh,
which is a
no,
testimony, to how incredible it's been.
it must have been incredible. But no, I mean, so you and Greg kind of went your own separate ways for a little bit after this is after Big Harry Nevis.
Exactly.
So, but I mean, what were some other bands that you were in after that?
Actually, Mike and Greg and I and Rob McGregor, who was one of the early members, came together again in the 2000s. Actually,
Okay.
we put together a cover band called Spill, and we played. It's kind of funny. Like we agreed to be a cover band. That's what we felt like doing at the time, but we were like, you know what? We're not going to play all the stuff that is hot right now because I realize you have to play some when you're in a cover band because you have to please everybody. But
Yeah,
like
yeah,
we kind of chose to play a lot of obscure rock songs that we liked,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of funny because people probably didn't recognize 80% of the set.
Right, right. I mean, because that's the thing when you're in a cover band, like song selection is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're gonna do like deep cuts, then you might as well just write your own stuff.
Right, and I think people thought it was our own music because they were
Right.
like, "What is this?" But I mean, don't get me wrong. Those guys were all great musicians. We sounded really good, so that's probably why people tolerated it. But yeah, I know they were like, "What
Well,
is
like
this?"
what were some of the song choices that you guys did?
Well, as I told Brett when we were in the studio with him, we used to play a lot of Virgos Merlot,
Yeah.
which I mean, at the time was not nearly as big, obviously, as like Nickelback, but
Mm-hmm.
you had to play the Nickelback song for the people that needed that
Right, right.
radio recognizable,
Yeah, of course.
but we were like, we like Virgos Merlot better.
Mm-hmm.
So, stuff like that, Full Devil Jacket,
Yeah.
Double Drive,
Nice.
um, Second Coming, Push Monkey,
Okay.
just band, like 90s, probably
Right.
like late 90s, early 2000 bands.
Yeah, I mean, I had that first Full Devil Jacket record when I was a sophomore in high school, so that had some pretty good tunes on it, like Where Did You Go?
Oh, yeah.
And Now You Know.
See, we were playing stuff like that, and
Nice,
it
man.
was out at the time, but like I said, it probably just wasn't as
Yeah,
big.
it was like mid-level, like active rock,
Yeah,
charts right now. They weren't like huge hits, but they were known.
yeah. Listen, and here's another deja vu from Time Travels.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, Matt and Willie from Staring Blind
Yeah.
were in a band called. Hold on, I just completely lost it. Impulse.
Okay.
Like the letter M, Pulse.
Oh,
Impulse.
okay. Without the I starting, I got it.
We were both playing covers around the same time in the same circuit. And then I didn't see those guys for like a long time while I was out of it. And then, after joining Vertebreaker, we played that first gig with Staring Blind, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah. Hey, it's Matt and Willie.
I know you guys from like a million years ago.
Yeah, and I think they knew Greg too when he first joined the band.
Yeah, because actually Greg was playing with us back then, so
Yeah.
so yeah, I guess me and Greg we've done a lot together over the years, but I actually took a long hiatus from music. I mean a long one, probably not 10 years, but I'll bet you probably 8 years.
Wow. So
Um,
I mean, after that break, was that before you met Ryan? Because I know that you guys jammed together for a little bit.
yeah, actually, this was prior to. I was at the tail end of my hiatus when I met Ryan, and I was no joke, literally about to sell all my gear and just hang it up. And
Well, like even before that, like why the long break? Like what led to that?
I don't know. I just got burned out.
Just from playing covers, or
No, just I think just from everything in general, like just maybe actually it's a combination of the frustrations that you deal with trying to keep a band alive and
band
going,
drama? Yeah,
and that with being younger at the time and
yeah,
probably being a little bit more jaded about it, like
yeah.
this isn't working.
Dude, being in a band is harder than dating. It really
Yeah,
is.
and so I don't know. I just got burned out and probably burned myself out and just took a long break from it.
Gotcha.
And I was about to sell all my gear and just say, yeah, I'm done. And I met Ryan and we jammed a little bit together, and then we kind of lost contact for a few months. And then I ran into him again one night downtown, and he was telling me all about how he had put together this cover band, and they were starting to write some of their own stuff, and they were just forming, and I guess they were looking for a bass player. And I just jokingly said to him, I was like, well, if you guys are still looking for a bass player, give Grandpa a call. And he left, and I gave him my number, and he left, and I don't remember how long it was, but it wasn't very long after that. A few months, he contacted me about Vertebreaker.
Yeah.
And I guess you and him had just formed it.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, honestly, like, and I mentioned there was a bass player before you, but, like,
Andrew.
yeah, and we had only played one show with that guy.
Yeah.
And by that time, he already told us he was going to leave anyway. So, I mean, which was awesome of him to do that first show, even though he was already technically out. So,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, it was one of those things like, he was a good player, but and I think he felt like he didn't fit in from the start. So it was just one of those deals where it just kind of worked out that way. But like, I mean, the band was still in its like infancy stages really. Like, I think we had just gotten the name.
Well, when Ryan came to me, he had the demos that you guys had recorded your own.
Yeah, like we had done like some homemade stuff.
Yeah, there was like 6 tracks, I think, and I immediately loved it. Like immediately there was something about it that I was very interested in, and I've told you this since the beginning. New Sickness is still to this day one of my favorite songs, and I didn't even have anything to do with the writing of it. You guys already had that song in the bag when I joined the band, and
yeah, I mean that song was like pretty much like it was like mainly a Ryan thing. Like he had the demo, and like he had it like recorded like on a MIDI thing on his computer, and he didn't even have a title for it. It just said New Sickness, like like saying, oh, the song's sick,
right.
New Sickness. So I'm like, you know what, that's a good name, that's a good title for a song. Let's run with that. So
Right.
so like I just came up with the words to whatever it was, and then just kind of kept all his music to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it was just one of those things like when you came and played with us that first night, it just felt right. Like it didn't.
Which ironically was another song at the time.
Oh yeah, it just feels right. That was an early demo, like an early Jake demo that I yeah, man, we had a few good songs like from the Jake era that we don't really play anymore, but I mean we still bust out Backstabber every once in a while, but I mean that's because we got that on record. But yeah, no, I mean like when you came and jammed with us that first night, like it felt like, I mean, I don't know if the other guys felt like that, but like I felt like, man, I feel like I've known this guy for years.
Right.
Like we just hit it off right away, and I think it was like me, Ryan, and Jake and Steve looking at each other like, yeah, he's the guy.
Right.
So I mean, it was just one of those things where it just fit together perfectly. Like you were a great player, great personality, and just like you were into it. And to this day, obviously, I mean, you and I are essentially, I mean, which everybody has some input in the band, obviously, but you and I really tend to run more of the business end of the band, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
In terms of promotions, I mean, everybody does their part, obviously, but I mean, I know you and I are the real like social media hounds,
right?
Of the
the social media harlots.
We really are, and plus we're like, neither of us, tend to shut up about the band, so like we just talk, those other guys can't get a word in edgewise because we won't shut up. So it's not even that they're quiet. We just like to talk.
Right. We accuse them of being quiet, but it's really just that they can't get a word in edgewise.
Right. I'm just waiting for like Ryan to like just lose his crap one night and just start cutting a promo on us.
I know.
You know what? Screw you, Jack. Whoa. Hey, where did that come from? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
Like the guy at the end of Waiting.
Yes, exactly.
Just lose it like that.
Dude, he just cuts a hard promo on everybody. Just drops a pipe bomb right there and just goes. But no, I don't think Ryan's going to do that anytime soon. But
well, no. So Ryan brought over these demo songs, and I listened to them, and I immediately was, attracted to it. I liked it, and then I came and jammed with you guys and met everybody, and I liked everybody, and it's been 2 years now, and it's like a whirlwind, isn't it?
It does. It's crazy to see, like, and I mean, look, we're still just a baby band in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
But like, even, in the Melbourne area, it's cool to see like people recognize us for this little band we kind of started in our garages, and people kind of know us around town, and now we're in this documentary thing with Al Corey, with these other
very established, incredible bands. These bands
from Orlando who have been around for years and years and years, and it's incredible. Like,
yeah.
I think our band has a lot to offer, and I think we're just getting started.
Yeah. I remember that whole first year, we just played so many shows.
We really did, man. Which is like what you have to do when you're starting out. You really need...
I mean, we definitely put in the footwork. I mean, we were playing multiple shows a week in several different cities, and just non-stop. And I remember literally like the whole first year, like just tiny little crowds, could barely get anybody there.
Oh yeah,
and that's just the price you pay,
We would be like working Tampa, St. Pete, and then like hitting Orlando in between, and then back to Melbourne. Like it was nuts.
Yeah, and so then in the second year, I feel like I started then maybe starting to notice a little bit that maybe people were starting to know who we were and actually want to come see us.
Right.
So yeah, I mean we've been very busy. We've worked very hard over the last 2 years.
Plus, I mean, I know especially in the studio when we went and did that first record with Brett, and like we barely had anything coming into it, and he was just so great to work with us the way he did, and just which I mean is a testament to how patient he was with us in the studio, because like we went in there with like one guy who was on his way out and another guy who isn't in the band anymore. And then it's like you had like you, me, and Ryan just trying to hold everything together.
Right.
And we managed to crank out that record, a record that sounds really good, and we're still very proud of, obviously.
Yeah. And I still remember standing out in the street after practice one night in those early days prior to that recording, and you asking me, was I interested in recording with Brett Hessla? And I was like, do you have any other stupid questions to ask me tonight?
Right. That was one of those things. I didn't expect him to respond, because I'm like, oh well, he's got it. He's kind of a big name. He gets a lot of bands in there, which is all true. But I mean, he's a working producer, and so he needs clients.
Right.
So and that was one of those things. I was like, well, what if? I mean, he's a professional, obviously, so he's going to record us, but obviously he's not going to put his stamp on something if we go in there and suck.
Right.
But then I was also thinking, I'm like, well, wait a minute. I mean, we're paying this guy to record us. Is he gonna just do it anyway and be like, yeah, you guys are good, and then just be like, oh, these guys kind of suck. But whatever. I'm getting paid. But I mean,
Right.
but from what I've gotten from him, he does seem to genuinely like our band. So
Yeah.
we've got that going for us.
Yeah, and he was, that was an incredible experience, wasn't it?
He was, man. And it's just, I mean, it was, I should say. And he was just a funny dude. Like really,
yeah.
like we just had so many laughs when we were there in the studio, and just him sharing stories of him being on the road with Creed and all this other stuff, and obviously the record turned out great.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely did a great job on it, like I still remember sitting there late at night listening to some of the early mixes, just going, God, listen to that, like
Exactly.
he definitely put a good touch on it as a producer.
Definitely, and I mean from everything we've done since then, and I know we're working on the new record, and it's the first with Greg and Jared in the band. Yeah, I mean Greg joined us like kind of like right after we put that first record out.
And he's still butthurt about that, I want you to know.
Yeah, well,
that he missed recording session with Brett Hessler.
Well, we did introduce him to Brett later on.
Right, and so he's only 50% as butthurt about it now.
I mean, you never know what's going to happen in the future, Greg.
Right.
I mean, let's never say never here. Let's keep
right,
a little optimism.
I'm sure our paths will cross again.
Right. But yeah, I mean, Greg joined like right after we recorded that record, and which is like kind of why his name and his picture are on the record, even though he didn't play on it, whatever. But
right.
Sorry, Greg. God, this feels like we're dumping on Greg the entire time, but we're not. I mean, he came in at a time like where we were in between lead guitarists, and he just crushed it. Like, we didn't think that he was going to be around permanently. We thought like he came in and be like, oh well, because I remember you telling me about him. You were like, oh well, Greg is I mean he's willing to sub in for us, but I don't think he's really willing to commit to a band or whatever. But he came in and he's like, you know what? No, I really like this. I want to give this a shot, and he's still with us.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's awesome. I mean, Greg's like one of like. I look at Greg like a big brother, like he's
right.
Like he kind of keeps everyone's heads on straight when we go too far off the rails, and it's great. I mean,
right.
He and I just relate to each other on a big way, and obviously you knew him from way back when, so it was the right fit. I mean, from Jump Street.
Yep. Yeah, he's been with us now. Jarrett has been with us a year now.
I know. Our little Jared is growing up.
He's all grows up.
Nah, I mean that kid has been such a breath of fresh air since we brought him in, hasn't he? Yeah. I mean, I think we've been having like more success, or like been like almost like having just better gigs, and just maybe it shows on stage, but like even since he joined the band, like he's just been such a shot in the arm for us.
I know. I lost my point. Hold on. You're editing this, right?
Of course.
Okay.
I probably should leave this in just to make it funnier. Which I might.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, what are friends for?
Yeah, but you mentioned new record. We just started working on that, and the funny part about it is we say new record, and it's not really new material. I mean, it's songs that we've been playing in our live set for a good year now. But they're not on any tangible form of media. So basically, to this point, the only way to have heard them is to come to our shows. So we kind of decided it was time to get some more stuff out there. So we've got we just put down 6 more tracks, so right. Hopefully we're going to have that all in the bag and ready to release it by beginning of next year.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Like we're kind of doing things in reverse as far as like because like most bands who are on like a big record label, like they'll put the record out and then they'll start playing the songs live. Whereas like we've been playing these songs live for a while, but now we're finally getting them on wax.
Right.
And it's funny. I mean, who knows how they'll sound? They might even sound a little bit different than the way we've been playing them, but we've had all this time to develop them into what they are now. And I'm sure, recording them might even like evolve their song any further. I mean, might evolve the songs even further than what they are now. It's like when you think about it, like when is a song done? When is a record done? Is it ever done?
I think all the songs get better after you get done recording them because you have picked them apart and put them under the microscope so much in the studio that like, and we come out of that experience and then play them live, they sound so much better. And it's so funny because every single time you discover something that you didn't know previously, like the other day I told you I was recording the bass tracks with Greg, and he's sitting there watching me play, and he goes, I didn't know that's what you play right there. That's not what I'm playing.
Right.
So, like, how have we been playing these songs for this long and we're not playing the same part right there? How's that possible?
It's very possible. But, I mean, it's funny how that works because, and again, for those listening, like, don't hold your breath on this record too long because, like, we just cut the drums recently. Rod just did the bass the other day. We still need to record guitars and vocals and other stuff in there. So it might be a while. But I mean, yeah, we are working on it, and it's funny how just this stuff can come together when you're in the studio and have it, just more refined. Because when you think about it, the recording is what people are going to hear the most, even more than playing it live, and so that's in a way. I mean, I forgot where I was going with that, but it's.
Did you notice right after Jarrett laid all the drum tracks down? I mean, don't get me wrong, he was doing a phenomenal job prior to that, but after that, I noticed a big improvement in his playing because he he had been in the studio breaking them down,
and he was he's just been more consistent since then.
Right, he had been practicing like crazy, preparing for the studio to click tracks, and then he got in there and just nailed it. And but it made him analyze all his parts, like really practice them, and like he came out of it
absolutely
even a better player, really.
Absolutely, and that's the thing I love about Jarrett's playing is like he comes out like a whirlwind, and sometimes we have to rein him in a little bit.
Right.
But that's also what makes him great because he's like an unconventional type of drummer, like
Keith Moon.
Yeah. Or like Ringo or something, where it's like it's a little bit off sometimes, but he makes it sound so good. It's such a distinct thing, and we haven't really heard that on record yet. So I'm excited to hear how it turns out, and I'm interested to get in there and work with Mark Brazel. I mean, I haven't really met him personally, but I know a lot about him.
Yeah.
I don't really know how a lot of I guess I should say I haven't really heard a lot of like bands he's recorded yet, so I'm interested in to see what how his vocal recordings sound because I'm hoping I can sort of hit it off with him as a singer, and but I mean obviously he's been around forever, locally.
He just did Who Was I's new record.
Yeah, so I mean he's been in the Melbourne Brevard area for a long time. He's done. Like, he's run sound for, like, really big bands and stuff like that. Yeah. Like, he
used to be on the road crew for the Deftones.
So it's like, he knows what he's talking about. Obviously.
Yeah, I've known Mark. My God, I've known him so long. Like, all the way back to, like I told you, those early Giant Harry Nevis days.
Yeah.
He was in a band at the time called the Tin Can Jets.
Okay.
And, but I mean, that's how far back me and him go, and Mark's been doing it a long time. He's a great audio engineer for sure.
Nice. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to meeting with him and working with him and seeing how it goes. It's all about like it's almost like finding band members. It's about having that right chemistry.
Right. Yeah, Mark's awesome to work with. He's very laid back, like he doesn't stress over anything and he makes it very relaxing and he's just got a good ear.
That's good.
He's got a lot of experience, so he's able to give you like some good advice during your troubled moments, I guess you'd say, in the studio.
And he understands our kind of music too, from what I hear.
And
so
he is
that's
a musician, so he's a drummer.
okay.
So I know he showed Jarrett some pretty crazy stuff when we were setting up, like some equipment and stuff, drum equipment that I hadn't even seen before. I was like, wow.
Absolutely, man. I'm definitely looking forward to getting in there and laying down some tracks with him and seeing what happens.
Yeah, we've been on a hiatus, a creative hiatus during this last quarter of the year, and we're, like you said, we're trying to get the new record done, and we're trying to write some new material for our live set.
Right. Yeah, I was going to get to that. I mean, I guess when you say hiatus, like we've been playing out a lot.
Right, like it's really not a break. I mean, we're still busy as ever, but
we just hadn't been writing a lot of new stuff up until recently.
Right.
And it's funny because it's like, man, we're just starting to write record these new old songs or old new songs, whatever.
Right.
And it's like now it was like, well, our set list might be getting a little stale. We need to put some new stuff in there and just stay fresh and stuff like that. So it's like, in a way, we're writing stuff faster than we can record it, obviously, which is how it normally goes. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, within the next couple of months, we should be able to throw some new stuff into our set. I know we have some shows coming up soon, and our new stuff isn't quite there yet. It's not quite ready, but I mean, it will be soon, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah, it's I'm excited about getting the new stuff out there. It sounds incredible.
Yeah. So I mean, there are a lot of cool ideas coming back and forth, and a lot of stuff like that I'm sure we can explore that like we're just beginning to touch on now is that. A lot of people have known this, but not everyone may be aware, is that you're a pretty good singer, man.
That's from years of being in bands where there was no singer, so I had no choice but to play bass and sing.
Yeah, which is not easy to do, by the way. I know, I've done it.
Right. I actually, to tell you the truth, I played bass and sang in pretty much everything I did prior to Vertebreaker, and then when I came into Vertebreaker, quite honestly, I didn't want to really sing anymore. I was just really enjoying playing bass again.
Really, that's interesting, man. Because I mean, I was going to ask you if you were doing any singing in the old cover bands, and it's like, I've been in bands where it's like I've played bass before, but I wasn't really the lead singer, or it's like. If the lead singer like played guitar, then I'd be like, hey, well, why don't we do a little like trade off, like a Lennon and McCartney or Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley kind of thing. But I mean that's interesting that you didn't want to sing necessarily. You wanted to focus more on playing bass, and I wanted to focus more on singing and not have to play bass. It's like kind of the opposite in that regard. But I mean,
it was fate.
Yeah, it just worked together perfectly. But that being said, you've got a good voice, and you do pretty much the all the backup singing live whenever we do stuff. It's like I'm trying to get Ryan and Greg to sing a little bit more, and Jarrett can sing a little bit too.
Yeah, actually, Jarrett's a good singer, and he and I were just talking about this last practice. It was like, man, we got to get a mic back there and get you in on some of this backing vocals.
Yeah, get like some 3-part harmonies going on, because we were able to lay a lot of different stuff down in the studio, and even had Brett sing a few backup tracks on Obsolete especially.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was I would love to be able to recreate some of those sounds live and just kind of. I mean, I've always felt the more voices in a band, the better.
Oh yeah, I don't think having several singers in a band has ever been a bad thing.
No, not at all. And like, I'm not opposed to like, I mean, yeah, I've been the lead singer up until now, but it's like I am not opposed to having you take the lead on a few songs here and there, or like have you and me go back and forth, or do something like that. I mean, whatever the situation calls for. I mean, it's a little bit different because we're so used to being in the roles that we're in, but it's nice to have that flexibility where it's like if we want to, like, I mean, there might be a song where it's like maybe you want to sing or I'll play bass, or like I'll play guitar, or whatever the case may be. I think I would love to see us kind of explore that a little bit in the future.
Yeah, we've talked about doing that, like for our live set.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, like, we would have to rehearse it quite a bit, though, and
Right.
it's tough with our schedules, I mean, being what they are. But, it's definitely something I'm not opposed to. It's a matter of, putting the time in, but, I mean, we're more than capable of doing stuff like that.
Yeah. So yeah, this is our last quarter of the year, man. So we're just busy trying to wrap all that stuff up.
Definitely, man. And, I think, now that we're working with James over at Blind Anxiety, I think, I think the next year is going to lead to some good stuff, hopefully. I think we've got a lot of cool stuff on the horizon, a lot more gigs to play, and I think we're kind of beginning to crack that Orlando market a little bit. Certainly being on Al's documentary helps,
Right.
or at least it will
can't-
help once that's in the bag.
I know. I can't wait to see the finished product.
Yeah. But another thing that a lot of the Vertebreaker fans, who, I mean, know us by our music or, whatever the case may be, they know the music obviously, but like what is it like for you to balance the band with work and the rest of your life?
Busy, but I mean, you designate the time to each day, that you need to get everything accomplished. I know that, again, compared to that first year when we were Maniacs,
Yeah.
I'd say we work a little less now, but we
Mhm.
work smarter.
Yeah.
Like,
because I think we've done a lot of the heavy lifting already.
right.
As far as, like, it's always the hardest part is, like, getting these bands off the ground, especially when you come from nothing and build it into what it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, and you, like, when I say that I considered you to be an original member, I mean it, because, like, Vertebreaker really wasn't anything before you showed up. Like, we had played one gig, and you have been, you've played at every gig since then, save for that one. I mean, even when I was down with a back injury, you went up and, like, sang a little bit, and on one show. So that was, and people still talk about that.
Yeah, that's one thing we don't say no, do we?
No, and rightly so, and we shouldn't, because
Right.
I think the more we make ourselves available, the more we get our name out there, and and who knows, maybe one day, hopefully we'll be in a position where we can be more selective about stuff, or we might, be able to ask for a higher guarantee wherever we might be. But we're not there yet, but we're working on that,
Right.
and we're doing everything right, I think, right now.
I'll tell you something funny about getting out there. I was talking about this prior, about the difference between back when I started what I consider to be, like, my first original band, like, compared to now being in Vertebreaker. When I think about, like, the systems that are in place now that weren't back then, it was so hard to get exposure, like, I mean, I'm talking like pre-internet, when you still had, like, fan clubs with mailing lists,
Right.
and you had to buy
Like
advertisement
fanzines and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have social media yet, so
No.
just the fact that we can reach so many people now by just putting it out there it's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I sound like the grandfather saying, I had to walk uphill in snow to get to school.
Uphill both ways.
Right, but
Which, by the way,
was.
dude, you're not that old, and even when people, like, you tell people what your age is, like, they don't believe it, because you're freaking youthful, dude. You're in good shape. You look great, and it's like, it doesn't, it's not like, it doesn't show when you're on stage. People are surprised, when you say, like, oh, I'm old, I'm this and that, which you're really not, dude. I mean, you keep the rest of us young, man. I'm telling you.
Well, thank you, sir.
I mean it. So, but yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I mean, I think, you could do one of two things nowadays. You could complain about the state of the industry and the state of rock music, and complain about what the internet has done to the business, or you can try to adapt with it, or try to just use it in whatever way you can.
Right.
And nobody knows the answer. Nobody knows what the business is going to be in another 10 years from now, if there's even going to be a music business.
Right.
It's some people don't think it exists right now. So.
Well, just even the whole concept of making it, by today's standards, it's just changed so much. I mean, back in the time when I was in my first original band, was definitely during the heydays of the record industry, when they had, just overstuffed coffers.
Yeah.
And could treat bands quite well. But back then, you had to rely on a label, or, that was it. And like I said, you didn't have the social media stuff. So you had to be prepared to move to New York or LA,
mm-hmm.
and just put it all on the line, and now we Slipknot comes out of Iowa.
Yeah.
It's just amazing now, the reach that bands have.
And we're not in the worst place to be, as far as that goes. Think about it. Florida is like the third most populous state in the United States.
Right.
People give Florida a bunch of crap because of all the crazy news stories that come out, but that's because we have so many people.
Yeah.
By the law of averages, we're going to have some nutcases down here, but that's a whole different topic. But,
exactly.
But it's like you've had big bands that come out of Florida before, out of Orlando and Miami, and not so much out of Tampa, but Tampa's still a big city. So there are opportunities here. Like if we lived in, say, Peoria, Illinois, it might be a little tougher. But
exactly, I know.
But
I don't know, would it?
I don't know. I've never been to Peoria. I'm sure it's lovely there, and hopefully some of the fine folks there who are listening are not upset by what I said. We would love to come to your town.
Yes.
But that is what you call covering your ass.
That's a little CYA.
You know it. But it's going back to what you said. It's just the world is such a smaller place now, and what that means for bands coming to make it, what it means for rock music, I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go, but I think the dream is still alive for all of us, and we're still trying to go for it as much as we can while still balancing jobs and families and stuff like that.
Right. And like I said, what do you call success? Everybody has a different definition, and I feel like for us, success to us right now really is just writing great music and reaching more people with it.
Yeah.
And really just focusing on that. I don't know, we don't really get too caught up in the whole industry thing and
no.
Making it by those conventions,
Yeah, if it does happen, that's awesome, but we're trying to reach as many people as we possibly can.
Right.
And hopefully, a lot of people like us. So
hopefully.
You're not going to please everybody, but yeah, I think people seem to like us. We've managed to play in front of crowds of older folks and then crowds of young teenagers and still get huge responses. So I think that says something.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely have some interesting gigs over time, haven't we?
We really have, man. It's like every cliche thing. It's like I'm surprised we haven't got paid in a hot dog and a cup of orange juice yet.
There's still time.
That would be better than some of the paydays we've had, but I digress.
I know. I would have gladly taken a hot dog and some orange juice.
Right. It's good. It's good protein, whatever. But you talk about balancing the band life with work life. I used to jokingly call you Dr. Rod Bobo on stage because you're in the medical field. You're not a doctor, but but you work a radiology machine. But it's we talk about maintaining that balance, and obviously you do in your relationship as well with Lacey, who's like
Yeah.
our, and it's funny, we talk about Lacey getting involved with the band. I mean, so many bands would like roll their eyes at that stuff. It's like, oh, your girlfriend wants to do stuff, like, okay, whatever. It's like, oh, your girlfriend wants to manage us, which Lacey isn't our manager, but like she's there at every show. She's
Right.
like running the merch booth. She gets involved. Like
They immediately assume it's a Yoko Ono situation.
right, and nothing could be further from, like, she's never once been like, you know what you guys need to do.
Right. Dude, she's over here selling merch right now.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I'm doing this interview from the roadside. We're out here selling merch, Vertebreaker merch right now.
pretty much, like, she's a machine. Like, she's awesome. Like, I mean, it's like, on the other hand, my wife wants nothing to do with that.
Right.
That's where you and I differ. But she's supportive in other ways, but it's like, she's like, no, I'm not going into the smoky clubs, Jack, you're on your own.
Right.
So, but
Yeah.
I mean, we're obviously both very lucky when it comes to that, and and that says a lot, to your character as well. I mean, you and Lacey, have a great relationship, and you're there, and she came in with her 3 little girls, and so you guys have like kind of a blended family thing going on there, and that's got to be a pretty big life change for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, but it's been a very nice one.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like you got like a whole kind of like nuclear family going on there, man. That's pretty awesome.
I'm telling you. Isn't that chic nowadays to be a rock star with a family?
I guess. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's like, we have a couple Vertebreaker kids
Like-
now. I mean, obviously Greg has his son Parker, who's there
Right.
all the time, and you have your 3 girls now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like in the 80s it was the total opposite. You were supposed to be this wild outlaw rock star, and now it's now the focus is on rock star family men.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Like
We have more reality TV now too, so.
That's true. But I mean, as far as that goes, we're just living all vicariously through Jarrett, really, because he's the only single one out of the 5 of us, and we're like,
The trials and tribulations of Mr. Lang.
I'm telling you, man. Like, he'll be telling us, like, yeah. So I met this girl the other day. The 4 of us are like, hey, man, what happened? Did you get laid? Yeah. Look, come on, man. We need this. It's like Greg and I are married. You and Ryan are both in very serious relationships. So it's like we're all living vicariously through Jarrett right now.
Come on, Jarrett, get around the campfire and tell us a story.
It's like, come on, man. You're young, good looking. It's like, come on. We need this. Tell us some stories.
Come on, you must have some tales.
He's great though, but yeah, I mean, things are good. Life is good.
Yeah, it is. I can honestly say that all these years of being in music, I mean, I've been in so many different situations, and I definitely, genuinely love being in Vertebreaker. I really love the band, and I don't know, man, it just works, like the chemistry is so right, and that is everything to me.
It does, man. Like I'm the same way, man. I've been in and out of bands over the years, and just like, I can't think of any band that has gotten along as well as the 5 of us do, at least the 5 current members right now, and I think that's partially because, the guys who were making it difficult aren't around anymore.
Right.
I mean, not to bash those guys, but I mean, it's, it's the truth, but
right.
But I mean, wow, that sounded really catty there for a second, didn't it?
Well, no, I mean, growing pains.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work out, and like you said, it's nothing. No hard feelings at all against either of those 2 individuals.
No, I mean, like, we've been talking to Jake a lot more recently, and we love Jake. I mean, we kind of fixed that relationship, and things are great there. So it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, but this lineup, I mean, you, me, Ryan, Greg, and Jarrett is just things are just clicking on all cylinders right now, and I hope that just as long as this thing lasts, that, I mean, it seems like seems like we're all on the same page, and hopefully it stays that way for a very, very long time.
Yeah. I just, like you were saying about how we stay so busy, you and I, with the promoting and whatnot. And I don't know, it's not even work to me. You know what I mean? Like, I genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah.
I guess I believe in the band that much, I guess is what I mean to say, is that, like, I have a passion for getting it out there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm really into it.
I feel the same way. I believe in what we're doing. I believe that, the people who have supported us so far are great to us, and we believe in maintaining those relationships and, just making friends as we go. Like, we're not trying to compete with anybody. We're just trying to do our thing and make some friends and have a great time.
Yeah. And we do have a really good local music scene here too, like
we really do. I mean, yeah, for being such a small community, that we get along with pretty much everybody.
Yeah, I mean, great bands, great musicians, great people. Not just, just people in general. Like the people that we see at all the shows, and it's just a real tight group.
Absolutely, and yeah, and you and me especially. Like, we just like. You and I are just have to fight to like keep each other from cracking up on stage because we're always doing something to mess with one another.
Right.
But it's great. That's part of our chemistry. And I think it's because like you and I especially have such a love of comedy and pop culture and stuff. Like, we'll be constantly dropping like obscure references on each other, and it's just it's great. It makes for just all kinds of funny moments.
It doesn't always work live, though. I've done it to you live and heard crickets in the audience.
Yeah, well, we're making each other laugh, and I think that's
right. You and I were like, rolling laughing, but everybody else was like,
"What are these two idiots talking about?"
Right.
But sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes it's just infectious enough where people get it. Be like, "Oh, these guys are having fun." I get it. So it might just be two people in a crowd of hundreds, but what are you gonna do?
That's right.
You got to build it person by person sometimes, Rod. You know what I mean?
It's a grassroots thing.
Absolutely, and it's funny, but I mean, we talk about stuff like that, and we talk about different ways to like market our band, and just like, which you almost have to do nowadays. You have to have like vehicles and stuff, and we've talked about like, whether it's the little like post practice clips we make, the little funny videos we'll put on Facebook, or just like we've talked about like writing like fiction or like stories, like making like almost like a short film or a movie or like even a comic book. Like, all that's like, none of that stuff is off the table for us.
Right. Now, will that ever come to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Maybe not, but we'll have a damn good time talking about it. That's for sure.
Exactly, and like, we've kind of experimented with our look on stage a little bit. Like, I mean, I used to like go full board with the makeup and stuff. I don't do that as much anymore. But like we did the Halloween show with like masks and stuff on, and like we're just we experimented with different stuff because like, it's all about creating like, not just a band but a brand.
Right.
And I think we have the potential to keep that brand growing and do something that people will remember visually and musically, of course. But I mean, right. It's all those things at once.
Total package.
That's why this stuff runs as smoothly as it does, because like you and I are very, we're very much on the same wavelength as far as the music, as far as the business end of it goes, and I mean, and everyone is to a degree. I mean, like, I know Greg is usually like, I don't know if we should, dress like that or do that. I mean, he's more of a musician's musician, but I think having that mix in there also works to our advantage as well.
Yeah.
It's a good complement to like just the crazy stuff we want to try.
Yes.
Greg brings us down to earth. It's kind of a recurring theme.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's the reconciler.
Yes. He's
Guitarzan.
Guitarzan, the reconciler. Yes.
How dare I put some other title upon him? That is Guitarzan.
No, he is Guitarzan, the reconciler. Dude, that has to be a character if we write a movie. I'm telling you.
That is a movie.
Oh my God, let's make that happen. Oh my god, dude! It's like you can tell like we're both tired and like giddy and just borderline delirious right now as we record this.
I know. I'm like, all right, I'm done, Jack. I don't have anything else to say. I'm tired.
Yeah, but that's. I mean, one last thing before we sign off, I gotta ask you, gun to head, favorite bass player?
Probably Trujillo.
Rob, nice.
Yeah.
Why Rob?
Because not only is he a like phenomenal player technically, it's just appearance wise. He has such style, like such good stage presence. And
Right.
I was watching some clips of him with Ozzy and with Metallica recently, and that's when it dawned on me that I steal a lot of my stage stances and moves from Trujillo and didn't even realize it.
Oh yeah,
subconsciously.
He's got that little crab walk he does.
Yeah.
It looks like a gorilla.
So I was like, where is this coming from? So that must be it. Watching Trujillo in action.
Yeah, he's a badass for sure.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. Dude, this has been such a great conversation. You and I could do this for hours. I am so freaking tired right now. I can't tell you.
You don't want to catch us when it's early and we're not tired.
Oh yeah, like we're running on fumes here and I know we got to work tomorrow and practice. So
yeah.
So yeah, it'll be an interesting next couple of days.
Yes, it will. Looking forward to the show though. We're playing at the Boondocks Live in Melbourne this Saturday night.
Yeah. I mean,
it's the 17th, October 17th.
Definitely. Hopefully we'll be able to get this episode out before then, but I'm going to let you go. I'm going to get out of here, and I will see you tomorrow at practice.
All right, brother. Thank you for having me on the Phoenix Report.
You know it.
And I will see you tomorrow at practice, my good man.
Sounds good, dude.
All right.
Take it easy, and remember to boom snick, not stick boom.
I knew it.
You cannot forget that.
Snick boom. Okay, I got it.
Thank you very much to Rod Bobo, bass player of Vertebreaker. Definitely my partner in crime. Just great musician, great songwriter, singer, bass player. He's awesome. I hope you guys had as much fun listening to this conversation as we did having it. Again, I'm so late, in posting this and editing it and finally having it for you guys. We recorded this, a couple weeks ago, at least from when I'm posting this. So I'm sorry for the delay. So my next show with Rod and with the rest of Vertebreaker is not October 17th. That has already come and gone. We recorded this conversation before that. That gig has already happened. So thank you for those of you who were there. But our next show is going to be Friday, December 11th at the Copper Rocket Pub in Maitland, which is just outside of Orlando. This is our first time ever playing the Copper Rocket Pub, first time ever in Maitland. So we will be there appearing acoustically, along with the band It's War. So this is going to be a very different kind of show. It's our first Orlando acoustic show. So we hope you guys appreciate it. We hope to see you guys there. We always have fun playing acoustically. It really shows a different side to the band, and we hope you guys get a kick out of it. We've had 2 acoustic shows so far, and both of them have went really well. So we hope you enjoy this one. Make sure you go to alikor.com, that's ALIKOUR.com, to find out more about the Central Florida Local Rock documentary. We just went there, went over to Studio 18, I should say, and we recorded our interview segment for this documentary that's coming out. It's going to be us, Mechanism, Murderfly, Traverser, and Soul Switch. It's just an amazing documentary that's highlighting local music in the Central Florida area. It's definitely something you'll want to check out and see if you can contribute a little bit towards their GoFundMe campaign. I think they are still accepting donations, so make sure you go there and donate. And there's a lot of really cool incentives over there for those of you who decide to pledge some money to the GoFundMe campaign. So again, it's alikor.com, ALIKOUR. So yeah, definitely make sure you go and support Alikor and all they do, and they've been very, very good to us. And go back and listen to episode 9 if you haven't already. That's the interview I did with Ryan, one of the guitar players from Vertebreaker. So this is the second Vertebreaker interview I've done so far. I definitely need to get to Greg and Jarrett eventually. Those guys are next for sure. Not the next episode, I should say, but they are definitely going to be on here. So absolutely stay tuned. I've definitely got a lot of other people I want to talk to. That is it for this episode. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at jackxconnor and like me on Facebook at facebook.com/jackconnormusic. Also, feel free to check out me, Rod, Brian, and the rest of the guys at www.vertebreaker.net. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, make sure you email me at jackconnorpodcast@gmail.com or tweet me with the hashtag Phoenix Report. And if you're listening to this on YouTube or iTunes, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and go back and listen to all the other episodes. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the Phoenix Report with Jack Connor on the twobadbrains.com.